I'm not going to take any more discussion on this, just so that we can continue with our meeting.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I have, you've listened to a lot of cons and pros. Not one more person?
Sure, Mr. Corey.
Thank you.
Say point of order.
Point of order.
Do you have a new point to make, Mark?
Yeah, I think, well, yes.
Okay, go ahead.
It's new to me. It's probably not new to some people here. Tonight we heard some interesting discussions from some experts, some self-proclaimed experts, and some other people. And I thought the discussion tonight was not whether we have an appropriate maintenance plan in effect, or whether we should, or whether we do, but what we're going to do about this Engine 4, which a gentleman who I've never met before, but I developed a lot of respect for him in a couple of minutes, an hour or so, claims that this truck is not worth the dime it sits on. You know, maybe 2 months or 3 months ago, there was a hope for this truck. But from what I've heard tonight, and from what I've seen, and glanced at that, and the photos, I like Skip, I'm not an engineer. I play with cars and motorcycles and stuff like that, but I play with them and then I give them to a good mechanic to work on. And I think we have the opinion of a good mechanic. I think it's up to the selectmen here to make a decision on what to do with this truck. And I don't think throwing $50,000, not counting the electrical and other work that might need to be done on it, into a 25-year-old truck is worth it. I mean, I suffer from the economy just like everybody else does. But I also suffer from my house burning down, or my neighbor's house burning down, or something similar to that. And Mr. Leandro and Mr. Bonte said that these are minor things to do, and it's everyday maintenance. Yeah, maybe we did slack off in the maintenance. And maybe Mr. Ackley from the engineers, fire engineers, will put in a plan that will prevent this from happening again. But right now, I think we need and we should discuss what's going to happen with Engine 4. Not what's going to happen in the future, what's going to happen now with Engine 4. It's sitting underneath the fire department. So if we have a major burn like they did in Meredith this week, or like the 2 fires they had last week simultaneously, you know, mutual aid's around too, but you know, they've got their towns to protect. So I think it's time for the selectmen to do some forward movement and come to a decision about this truck quickly and get it in motion. If it requires having a special town meeting and a special vote, well then we have to bite the bullet and pay the bill for that and get it on with it, because it's still dying around with this and talking back and forth is just wasting time, energy, and money. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Corey. Okay, so to that issue, there are 2 options, I guess, that we're going to need to look at. Obviously, option 1 is to apply. We can do a couple different things about purchasing this fire engine. We're asking the voters to buy a new one again. So we've got a couple options to look at. Option 1 is to apply to the commissioner of NHDRA for emergency expenditure using a surplus fund balance. And it's just over $4.5 million, $4.8 million. Option 2 is petition the Superior Court for permission to have a special town meeting. And we could obviously do the appropriations for this in the form of bond or use the surplus fund balance. And obviously if we were going to have a special town meeting, it'd be about a minimum of 60 days before we could do that. Scott, have I missed anything, or Mr. Akeley, would you like, have I missed anything?
Yes, of course, please. Scott, can you tell us what the procedure would be as far as if we have a special town meeting? Is it an evening meeting, or the polls open all day? Is it a pre-written motion, a pre-written warrant article?
No, it's...
And one more question. Are absentee ballots allowed?
Yes, would be the simple answer to your last question. It's done like any other town meeting, even though it's a special town meeting. The selectmen ultimately set the hours that the polls would be open. Typically it's 7 to 7, but you have the ability to shorten that time frame if you want. But the selectmen set the time frame for the polls, but it's kind of like any other meeting. In this instance, anything over $100,000, you have to have a public hearing on the bond. Then you have a deliberative session where people talk and can amend the warrant articles. And then 30 days after that, roughly, you have the actual voting by ballot, and it can be done, people can vote by absentee ballot as well.
Thank you. The other thing I would say, just to keep on the table, is there is a third option, although Sean doesn't recommend it, is raising $100,000 for a repair of this truck.
Yes.
I think it needs to be out there, but I don't favor it.
No, that's a valid point, Kevin, thank you. Selectman O'Brien, I come to you because I know you had some comments earlier.
Okay, thank you very much. What I wanted to report on is a discussion, especially since the chief is not with us tonight, that I had with him, where I asked some questions that brought about a bigger picture than what we're looking at. There's all kinds of repair of this. I have to admit that I glaze over with stuff in this stuff because I have absolutely no idea what anybody's talking about. But I think you saw my opinion. I should say you saw Chairman Jack O'Brien's opinion in the paper today, as I was questioned about this yesterday. What I want to talk about is the bigger picture, a couple of points to make. I have friends, and I talk to a number of people that say, we drive, and you made the point, we drive by the firehouse, there's 85 fire engines there, how can we need another truck? And the point that I want to make, and that I got out of the chief, is, and I'm not blaming the media, but the media reports disastrous fires. And there's a big picture of this house that there's nothing left. And my friend says, why do we need a fire engine when we are putting out a basement? And the point that the chief made that I picked up on is that what they don't report is the saves. There's a lot of times that buildings are saved because of our fire department and how they do things. So I wanted to make sure everybody recognized that. It's also of interest to me that when we bought this engine, if I'm correct, that the city of Laconia and the town of Guilford bought 2 engines at the same time to make the price good. My concern, and again, what I got out of the chief is that the Ranger really wasn't a good buy at the time. I think it sounds like we skimped on what we were buying then, and the company went out of business 2 years later, so that gives you an idea of how good their trucks were. And Laconia got rid of theirs a long time ago. And it was interesting to me, matter of fact, I met Kevin at Dunkin' Donuts the other day. It wasn't that long ago.
Laconia.
Let's put it this way, they got rid of their truck already.
Laconia's Ranger is still in service. It's at the Lakeport Fire Department. It's the yellow. They call it Old Yeller. It's painted yellow.
Oh.
And Ranger fire engines went out of service in, I believe, 94 or 95. I know this because I actually serviced their rubbish. I actually.
It was
I had a
interesting.
compactor on rent there that I picked up when they went out of business.
As I was getting ready to say, we met at Dunkin' Donuts the other day, and I was looking in the paper, and I thought, wow, the big headline is Laconia Fire Department Engine 4 is refurbished. And I thought, wow, this is pretty slick. And I started reading through it, and it was $82,000, and they replaced the whole thing, and it was going to last 15 years. And then I looked at the top, and it said 25 years ago. So I didn't pick up on that it was reporting old information, which I thought was interesting.
John, 25 years ago, that truck wasn't even built. That's another truck.
This was in 1974. I'm just saying that I'm looking at these things and it kind of scared me when I saw the $82,000 and then it was going to last 15 years. The other thing I wanted to talk about that I gleaned from the... Huh?
That was 25 years ago, buddy.
Yeah. Oh yeah, even worse if that was the case. What I gleaned from the chief that I think is very important here, again, looking at the big picture and not bolts and tires and all that kind of stuff and brakes. And that is that we have, I should say the fire department has developed specialized equipment. We could have, and I thought this was interesting from the chief, we could have 3 attack pumpers. And everything would be great because the minute there was a fire, that attack pumper would go out and attack the fire and everybody would be happy. The problem is they got 10 minutes of water on them, if I'm correct. We're pretty close to that. So that if we had 3 attack pumpers, they're not going to do that great a job, and the fire department has specifically designed their equipment to be specialized equipment, so that the attack pumpers get there, they get 10 minutes of time to wait for the pumper to, for the tanker to get there, and then have another 25 or 30 minutes to develop a water source. So that's one of the reasons that there's the trucks that we have there. Again, what I gleaned from the chief. I agree, and I don't want to bring up this maintenance thing again. Having a background in military aviation, if you sneeze on a military aircraft, it gets written down. So we need to do a better job at getting that squared away. But the bottom line now is, and I think it's very important, is that we have one attack pumper. There's no backup for a second fire or when engine 2 is out of service. We're spending money, I'm concerned about spending money now that is going to be the same amount of money because the first year under a bond issue, we don't have any payments. So we're spending money now that's going to be the same money that we're going to spend a year or two. And again, Jack O'Brien reported this morning that he was looking for a gamble, and evidently the gamble didn't pay off. So my suggestion as we look at this thing is to minimally, and I have a question for Scott about this, but minimally go to the judge and find out if that's going to even work. If it does, we can make a decision at that time. If it does not, then we got to go into Plan B. And my question to you, Scott, is what does that cost us? Do we have any legal fees or anything that go to the judge to find out if we can have a town meeting?
Yes, there would be some legal fees.
Minimal?
Yeah, I think $1,000 would be my rough guess on what the legal fees are.
Okay. So, as I say, I wanted to make those points from an overall standpoint for people that don't understand, because I didn't understand till I spent some time with the chief, and it would be my thought that we at least go that far and find out where we're going, why we're going, and how we're going to do it. Thank you for your time.
Do you have any questions? No. I'm ready to make a motion. I move that we authorize Scott to petition the Superior Court for permission to have a special town meeting to act on this fire truck. That's my motion. I want to discuss a little bit. I'm not in favor of going to the DRA for the surplus fund balance access because I don't think it's the right thing to do. But I do support the special town meeting.
Second.
Having a first and a second, is there any questions or comments? Yes, sir.
I don't think that we have to word the warrant article to do the petition. But I think it is important to know that if we're not pursuing the use of surplus fund balance, then the alternative is a bond.
That's correct.
So that's, just so I understand that.
Yes, that's
Scott, are
correct.
you drunk? Does he need, are you saying he needs to?
No, as long as I understand that that's the right
Yep.
intention, I will work with
That's
it.
why we're going through the court.
And you understood the same thing, right? A
Correct.
bond.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the long term.
Out of respect for Mr. Akeley,
Yes.
do you have any other comments for this board before we vote?
I do not. Other than to just bring you, and then not scare tactic, but just to make you aware that the truck that we are depending on now, which is a fairly new truck, it's only 9 years old. But understand, by the time this new truck that we propose to buy was delivered, this truck is already 10 years old. It's not brand new and shiny. It's been mentioned that if you crawled underneath that has some issues as well. We obviously are going to glean some positive maintenance records out of all of this conversation, but I just wanted to mention that the truck that we're relying on, again, is 10 years old, which is, these trucks are spec'd to last 25 to 30 years. And I don't want to be redundant. We've beat the heck out of this, but
Then it goes to second run from your
Second.
and then we'll go to backup.
Question.
Yes.
If in fact we do what we're thinking about doing at this point, what are you going to do for 10 months? What, do you have an alternative plan for
Yes.
putting this thing together?
Well,
Or not?
we do. We're going to have to do something. We can't just rely on mutual aid, obviously. That isn't the intention of mutual aid. We are going to have to put another truck in its place. Where we get that truck, we don't know. We are at this point researching. Again, this is new. We met Tuesday, we met the previous Friday up at Lake Region Fire Apparatus and realized that this truck very possibly was not going to go back into service. We have, if in the Lakes region, someone has a pumper attack truck that is available in reserve status, that is viable, we could possibly rent that. I don't know if it's feasible to borrow. I don't know if that's even a possibility. However, there are commercial vendors that rent trucks, and we could possibly rent a truck. But I can tell you that it's not our intention to leave that void empty. We can't leave that void for fire protection for 10 months without a truck at all. And if at the end of the 10 months, we showed you that we could operate with one truck, where would we be? The trucks all plays a role. And now when engine 2 is down for repair, out of town on mutual aid, the town is left without a single attack truck. And you just spoke to it, Jack, that the roles that all of these trucks fulfill. You know, they're not all attack trucks. You know? And I won't beat a dead horse and tell you what every truck does. I do know.
Well, just to add 1 second, it's the specialized equipment on the truck.
Correct.
Where the tanker is designed to bring water, it doesn't have the hoses to go around a house or whatever. Again,
right, the other
it's a
trucks,
long discussion I had with the chief.
right, the other trucks in the barn, like you said, have their roles. Tanker, obviously, because less than 10% of the town is protected by hydrant. We're a rural water source, various water sources, and we needed a pumper to pump out of those. So we have it's not really a super pumper, because there is in fact a truck that's a super pumper, but we have a very large volume pump truck, as well as the tanker, and the 2 attack trucks. Again, we've run 2 attack trucks since the 50s, and I believe at one point we had 3 attack trucks, but that might have been when Glendale was up and running. Okay. And not to point fingers, but Mr. Labonte did say he bought this truck in question.
Ranger?
No, we didn't buy it in question.
No. Yeah, but I was gonna say, I didn't know that. I didn't know that until you brought
At the time.
it. You did buy that truck, and
We bought that truck. So that goes to show you. That goes to show you how old I
You
am.
play with fire, you get fired back.
Right?
You should have left it.
yeah. Well, the current board of fire engineers never would have purchased that.
All those in favor?
Do you have a question for me, Kev?
Aye. All right, we're moving on.
Mr. Chairman, just before you completely abandon this issue, the process of getting before a judge might take 2 to 3 weeks. In the meantime, possibly at the next meeting, the selectmen can actually consider setting a date and starting the process for the town meeting in anticipation of the court making a favorable ruling. Worst case scenario, if they deny it, then we just put the brakes on the process, but that would help to expedite things instead of simply waiting for the court and then setting a town meeting. So something to consider at your next meeting is actually setting a date and the times for voting.
Great, thank you.
Could I ask one question,
No more,
please?
no more,
Point of order. Say point
no
of
more.
order.
Not a public hearing,
Point
sorry.
of order. Say point of order. Say point of order.
Rock and roll.
So that's it, that's a wrap?
For you.
Oh.
Croc TV.